You're listening to the AFTERBUZZ TV Network, now the largest new media platform on the web, and your #1 source for after-show entertainment.
Very good, Dean Johnson.
From the AFTERBUZZ Studios in Los Angeles, California, and streaming live on Ustream, this is AFTERBUZZ TV for True Blood. We'll break down tonight's episode and get you all the latest True Blood news and gossip. If you'd like to buzz in on tonight's show, you can buzz us at 424-256-1729. That's 424-256-1729. And now, picking up where the show leaves off and the buzz continues, it's AFTERBUZZ TV for True Blood.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the show. So this week it's going to be a little different. I'm Sarah, and I'm in the studio today, and I'm going to be talking with Erin, who's over the phone. So if there's any...
Hey guys, Erin.
Yeah, so if there's any little delay or anything, just a heads up, please forgive us. We're just trying to get you all of our opinions and get you it on time. So, Erin, I think we were going to do a recap of last week. Did you want to take that away?
Sure. Okay, so for those of you who are watching last week's episode, the big news was basically that the vampires had to be holed up, right? They had to hide from Marnie / Antonia because they were casting this big spell to bring out the vampires into the daylight, which we learned was what happened in Spain to Antonia, in the 1800s, I believe. She ended up bringing out all of the vampires, and they all died, mostly. So she's trying to cast this spell again. So last week's episode left off with basically all of the vampires chaining themselves with silver so that they wouldn't go out into the daylight. And the cliffhanger of last week's episode was Jessica basically escaping her chains and about to go through the front door and out into the sunlight, which would kill her, as you guys know. And we saw Jason running to save her, but as he ran to save her, we hear this gunshot, and we don't know if Jason has shot someone or if someone has shot Jason, and that was the big cliffhanger from last week, right?
Yes.
So this episode starts off right back on that thread with Jessica. And what did you think of Jessica being saved by Jason here?
Well, as much as I don't want Jessica and Jason to get together, I love that they did this because I'm a really big fan of Jessica and of Hoyt's character, and I felt like their storyline was kind of like on its own, separating itself from everyone else, like could have been dropped and like not really missed. Totally. So I like how they're tying it back in and they're using more characters to kind of bring them back into like the whole society of like True Blood. Yeah,
I mean, it was kind of like, because I love Jessica and so much, it was upsetting and together for me, at least.
Yeah,
I didn't like kissing.
Yeah, it was kind of. I mean, we've seen it before, but it's always been fantasies. This is like the pretty much the real first kiss, isn't it?
Yes, actually. Yeah, this is their big first sort of make-out scene, and it was pretty intense, especially for Jessica because she's kind of the one that initiates it, whereas we had seen Jason having these like sexual fantasies about Jessica, and we kind of knew that Jessica liked Jason too, but this was the first big lunge for her into Jason.
Yes, definitely. I think it's kind of funny that of all the vampires to escape, it's Jessica. Doesn't that just seem weird to you? I was like, really?
Yeah,
she's
the
the
youngest. And I thought, last week's episode actually had this bit where Jessica gets free, and then Bill says, Jessica, let me out too. And he's sort of like still chained in the basement and can't get out and wants to go into the sun with her, but she's the only one who ends up making it.
Yeah, I really don't understand that like, if anything, like, wouldn't...
In last week's episode was that Bill basically didn't put as many chains on her because he thought, she's a younger vampire and she was in a lot of pain, so he just kind of spared her, but that obviously didn't work out too well, so she ended up getting free.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I guess that explains it. It just seems weird to me, in my head.
Yeah.
And then...
Yeah, go on.
Oh, so after we see the Jessica and Jason bit, we also see a lot more about the pack this episode, and also tying in the pack to other plot lines. So, for instance, we learned that the pack leader is actually Luna's ex-whatever, like father of her child.
I love that twist. I love that. I thought that totally added to it. And just seeing the pack with, like, Alcide and how uncomfortable he clearly is, I thought was kind of fun.
Yeah.
But seeing that he clearly, like, flourishes in that role because he was taking the lead and kind of reining in the younger wolves.
Yeah, I mean, you look at Alcide, and all I can think is, like, leader. Like, if I was the leader, I'd be so intimidated if that guy walked into, like, my pack.
He's a really big guy. I would follow him. I follow him a lot of places. He's a little monster.
I'll follow you. Following him, we'll all just follow him everywhere.
We'll all follow Alcide. He's become my new favorite guy on the show. I really want him kind of naked the way that Eric was this episode. Like, I want him shirtless.
All the
I
time.
want him having sex with someone. I want that happening.
Yeah, but I've said this before on the show, but not with whatever her name is.
No, I know his girlfriend, who no one cares about her. No one likes her,
and she really bothers me. She's really hypocritical. I mean, we've seen her, like, she was recovering the addict. She was total mess. She, like, left Alcide. She's betrayed him so many times.
Yeah,
but, like, she's always, like, making him promise her things. And in the back of my head, I'm like, really, if he doesn't follow through, I'm not going to care, because you've broken so many promises that how can you expect someone to owe you anything?
Yeah, totally. I want her gone, and I do have a feeling like she won't last that many more episodes. Yeah. I hope at least, because I'm so over her.
Yeah, they're definitely trying to find a place for her. I mean, last season or the season before, she was like a tramp. And then at the very beginning of this season, she was like Stepford wife status. She probably even had the pearls, and, like, now she's somewhere in between.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like they're trying to get people to like her, and it's just not catching on.
I know, and I don't know about you, but I get the sense from her character and from the lines that she's really trying hard to sort of blend in and be perfect for Alcide, but she also needs him to bend with her because she's obviously feeling tempted by something. She said she needs this pack. She finally feels like she's okay. So I almost wonder if she's, like, on the brink of going back to V or something like that.
Or something. She's just not a very stable person. It really could be anything. And she has it made.
At the end of the episode, one of the last images we see is basically Alcide, and we'll get to this later too, but we see Alcide rescuing Sookie, and then we see her sort of watching, very angry. And I think that's some foreshadowing for the next episode.
Yeah, and I'm sure we'll cover it more next week. But if that is the fact that she's scowling over him saving her, I'm going to be like, really? Really? He saved you how many times? It's someone's life. You don't get to just be like, oh, he's my boyfriend. He can't save your life. Nah. Like, that's ridiculous.
Yeah, and speaking of jealousy, let's talk about Sam and Luna for a moment and what's going on there. So in last week's episode, we saw that Tommy actually transforms into Sam and has sex with Luna.
Which is disturbing.
Which is awful, I know. And then in last week's episode, we saw Sam kind of kick Tommy out of the house and say, you're done, you're dead to me, this is it. And then we see Sam trying to kind of make things right with Luna. I mean, What do you think of her, having sex with Tommy and then just sort of like taking back Sam? Would you have done that, or would that have been too weird? Not
No.
that you're a shifter, but just theoretically.
I mean, theoretically. Well, I was thinking about it during the show because I kind of felt like Luna was giving off the vibe that she was angry with Sam. And I'm like, that is completely unfair. Like, yes, you're a victim in this situation, Luna, but so is Sam. He just had his identity stolen, and then his brother, like, had sex with his girlfriend. Like, that's traumatic, too. And, and I just felt like she was kind of, like, really angry about it. And I feel like it should have been something that, like, it would have been sad, but would have, like, I don't know, brought them closer together or something. Not like this anger spell.
I also can't imagine having a brother and then having sex with the woman you get sex with. It's just like a lot of forgiveness.
Yeah, there's a lot of forgiveness that has to go around. What do you think? Do you think it's okay for Sam not to forgive his brother for this?
Well, I always feel bad for Tommy. There's something about it. I just feel like Reed, parents are dead. He was raised a dog fighter.
That's
But
true.
there's something about him that is really genuinely awful, and I don't blame him for kicking him out.
Yeah, I think it's okay for him to kick him out. Hold on, I'm just gonna check something. Jesse, is everything sounding okay? Okay, so I'm sorry. I was just my headphones were a little cracky, and I wanted to see if it was just me or if it was the reception. So yeah, so I just wanted to check, but I think he's looking into it. I also wanted to say about Tommy that I think personally there's a difference between, because he also shifted into another person this episode and so I think there's a difference. I think they're both bad, but I think there's a big difference between him shapeshifting into Sam and like firing Sookie and obviously sleeping with Luna versus turning into Maxine and just trying to get some money.
There was something unintentional when he changed into Sam. He didn't know what was happening at first. But then we saw all the motion here where he steals her clothes.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point. Did you know what was going on? I felt like I knew exactly what was happening the moment someone walked in that house.
I think at first I was a little confused, and then I understood that what he was doing.
Yeah, I like
where he was going with that.
It was like the moment he picked up the shoes and then changed the pairs, especially, I was like positive it was him. It was really funny.
Yeah.
I also wanted to say one thing about this episode. It's just throwing it out there. The whole vibe of it, though, was a little bit cheesy to me. Did you feel that at all? There was a bunch of cheesy conversations and cheesy...
I think a lot of it actually had to do with Eric and Sookie.
Oh, well, yeah, that whole craziness. I agree with that. Oh, completely. Are you talking about the whole, like, it's snowing and there are no clouds, but the sun is shining on my face?
Yeah. That's a little much for me. The past few episodes, too, have, like, really glorifying sex and making it very, very, like, dreamlike. But it's a little weird. It's a little...
Yeah, so you're saying, like, it's too over the top. I mean, they're trying to glorify this stuff, but it's just making it ridiculous. Like, it's making it really like, obviously the show's not realistic, but it's making, like, the emotional part not realistic to me.
Yeah, it feels like they're trying too hard with that one.
Yes, I agree.
The thing I liked about Sookie and Bill was that a lot of their sex was, like, raw. It was in the moment. This is not the case.
Yeah, I would agree. On that aspect, I do think that Bill and Sookie were doing a little bit better. A lot of the sex scenes between Sookie and Eric are not good. That could in part be that Sookie and Bill actually do have, like, a relationship in real life, so obviously it comes a little bit more naturally for them.
A little more comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I actually thought about that. Like, she's married to Bill Compton in real life.
Mm-hmm.
And then she has to be naked and doing these, like, really graphic sex scenes with her co-star. And I guess that comes with being an actress, but...
Yeah, I think it's just funny because, like, they're on the same set together all the time. Mm-hmm. And, of course, when they started this whole thing, they weren't married. So it just must be a really interesting vibe. I imagine that they're all, like, really family-like on the set, and they all love each other so much. But
right. I guess you have to.
Yeah. And then, so, about...
Blood.
I'm sorry, what'd you say?
So, no, I was saying they swap blood. That's a part of this episode. Now,
yes. Definitely. And then I wanted to talk a little bit more about Jessica, but instead of Jessica and Jason, I want to talk about Jessica and Hoyt. Because at the big end, we have we have an actual breakup that happens between them. And it goes complete.
So sad.
I know. It was so depressing. And
we have the fantasy breakup first.
Yes, which I thought was real.
I thought it was real, too. I got really nervous.
Yeah, I thought it was real up until the point when she got in the truck. I thought that she really did smash Hoyt's face in, and I was playing it out in my head, and I was like, oh, this is when she's going to turn him into a vampire because she feels bad.
I know, but then she was smiling with Jason. I think as soon as Jason said, he said, like, I want you to kill him and then fuck me or something.
Oh, yeah, and he was like, oh, you really turned me on with blood all over you. Or so. I'm like, yeah, sounds good. No, really, yeah, definitely. Yeah. And so then we get to the real thing, exactly, which goes completely differently than her fantasy version or dream version. I wouldn't really consider it a fantasy since it's weird. And basically, Hoyt doesn't play the I'm a baby wimp card. He plays the, guess what? I loved you too much and you don't deserve me card, and chucks her, like, physically, like, she gets repelled out of his house.
Yeah, I love that.
You did?
Well, I love it up for himself because in the long run, I love Jessica, but I care more about him. He's just sort of like a helpless little baby.
Yeah, I think he needed this. I think he needed this moment. Like, it made me kind of be like, oh, Hoyt, you're not being Hoyt. But, like, he needed it if they're ever going to get back together at all, in my opinion. Because if he had done that, they would have been done. Right now, I can kind of see them maybe getting back together. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is definitely... I know
we're having a little bit of self-disclosure. Should I call back?
Sure. And I'll start talking a little bit about... Let me see what we should talk about next. I'll just talk about Marnie and Bill's conversation on the phone, and then you can come back and we'll talk about the big ending.
Yes, let's do that. Okay, I'll be right back.
Okay. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about Marnie and Bill. And they have a phone call today. And Tara's kind of like the mediator in a way between the two of them. And it's really funny. You start out, you have the camera going back and forth between Bill, and then on the other half is on Antonia / Marnie and Tara. And Tara's like explaining to her kind of how technology works. And then they start this phone call, and it's on speakerphone. And basically Bill is like being so apologetic and like, oh, I'm so ignorant and arrogant, and we just want to have peace, and it's horrible. And obviously, most people see right through this, and it's like ridiculous. And obviously, Bill doesn't feel this way, and you can see that wheels turning in the back of his head that we're gonna like ambush you or something. And Marnie, oh, are you back? Hello.
Yes. Hello.
Hello.
Sorry.
So no worries. So I was just kind of describing the phone call a little bit between Bill and Marnie, and I just said that, like, for me, during the whole conversation, Bill, you could see right through everything he was saying, completely. Yeah. But Marnie, who obviously did see through or whatever, was much more convincing when I was like watching her. I was like, does she know? Does she not know? And Tara's like believing Bill or something because she's like nodding like it's okay. And I was just like, this is interesting. What did you think about that conversation?
I also couldn't tell like exactly when it happened, but I knew that both of them were going to bring other people. It just didn't make sense that they would meet up, alone.
in a
for this
cemetery.
peaceful gathering.
Yeah.
Especially because we've been able to see like the conversations that Bill has had with other people, saying that Marnie is dangerous and needs to be taken out, and vice versa with Marnie. Marnie seems to be like purely focused on eliminating vampires. So I think.
I have a question. I'm not sure. How did Marnie convince all of her followers to do that spell with her?
Yeah, so this was in last week's episode.
Yeah.
Basically, what happened was that Marnie sort of brought them together into a room and said very calmly, those of you who want to stay, you can help to fix everything that's wrong in the world, which is, like rape and murder, and it's all the fault of these vampires. And if you don't feel comfortable, then you can leave. And we saw a few people leave, but the people that stayed were people like Tara and the new waitress on the show, and basically people that have been wronged by vampires. And then Marnie basically did some simple magic with them just to kind of show them the power that she has and the power that they can have.
Gotcha.
So that's sort of, it was pretty easy to convince them, believe it or not.
Which is kind of ridiculous to me. I mean, don't people realize? I know that, like, whenever anything bad goes wrong with me, it's like, it's never, like, one, it's, it's an individual thing. It's not like a population thing, or I'm going to blame the whole world, or I'm going to blame all the plumbers because my toilet broke. Like,
Yeah, I mean, there's part of me with this storyline with Marnie and the witches killing the vampires is just that it's almost hard to imagine that kind of long-lasting hatred. That it's so long that you would, wait to come back for centuries in the form of another person and sort of convince a new coven. But she's focused, and as we see when they go to the cemetery to meet up with Bill, she has other intentions, and she knows right away that Bill has brought other people.
Yeah, and I have a question. I have a question for you. So a lot of the things that came up in this episode talked about power. And I'm just wondering, because I have my own opinion, but out of fairies, shapeshifters, wares, witches, and vampires. Wow, that's a lot when you say them in order. Which ones, how do you think the power rankings go? Because we heard the werewolves today say that they weren't as powerful as vampires, at least on an individual, one-on-one.
Agreed.
So what do you think?
Well, it seems like the vampires are more powerful than anyone, or so they thought, until this woman, Antonia, comes into play, who is probably one of the few people that can actually have an effect on vampires, like an immediate effect.
So do you think it's like Antonia, vampires, witches? Is Antonia
I think that's kind of how it's going. Yeah. Antonia, vampires, witches, maybe werewolves fall in there somewhere, and then panthers. We've got a lot of supernatural whatnot going on. Also
many.
fairies. Where do they factor in? Actually, in the end of this episode, we see Sookie use her power, if ever so briefly. She pulls out her hand and does the glowing light trick.
Yeah.
And knocks someone out.
I think. Continue.
Yeah, go on.
Well, I was just gonna tell you what my little pyramid is, real quick. I think it's gonna be Sookie at the top, because everything revolves around Sookie all the time.
That's a good point.
So,
Really
I mean, the novels are like the Sookie Stackhouse novels. So,
yeah,
I'm gonna.
That would be cool, actually, to see her come out on top. That would be amazing.
Yeah, so I think it would give Sookie first, or fairies or whatever, Sookie fairy, whatever. And then after that, I would say, because this is what I was thinking. I was like, if we got Godric and Antonia and put them against each other, I think Godric might have beat her.
Yeah.
So I think
he was one of the oldest. So I agree with you.
So I think actually that it all depends on age and power, but that witches and vampires are tied. And they're ranked within themselves, but there's par on par on different levels, if that makes sense. And then
I think it does, and I think it's going to be interesting to see how Sookie comes out on top, only because, as we saw at the end of this episode, she's taken down, someone shoots her, we don't see who, but she gets a bullet in the stomach, and we see a lot of blood coming out.
Any suggestions? Or not suggestions, any whatever. It's called.
The only thing I can think of is that Pam grabs a gun at one point, and she's kind of the only one that I see with a gun. But we don't see any, person or source behind the gun. We just hear the shot and see Sookie.
Yeah, I'm gonna say it's Lafayette.
Lafayette.
Possessed by that
in this
person.
episode, towards the end, we saw Lafayette taking the baby. He gets, I don't know if you caught the part where the sort of ghost that he's been seeing.
Yeah, the ghost lady who takes over his body.
Right, takes over his body. Then he goes to Andy Belfleur's home, where they're all staying, where the family's staying. She takes the little evil baby. And, this is another thing. We've been wondering if the baby is actually evil this whole time. And it almost seems like the ghost woman might actually just be the evil force behind it all and not the baby.
Side note, I know I brought this up with the whole gunshot thing, but just a side note about that ghost lady.
Yeah.
Her accent through this entire episode was driving me crazy. Just wanted to point it out. She was singing in French.
Cajun Creole. Yeah, that Creole French.
Yeah, she was singing in French, and then she goes to talking, and it's a mixture of uneducated English mixed with French, mixed with twang, mixed with who knows what. But I was like, what are you? Where are you from? What? I'm so confused.
I know. I couldn't tell if she was a slave or a worker. I had no idea.
Yeah, it was really weird. Just that was my side note. I'm still gonna say it's Lafayette possessed by ghosts because they love to throw weird things in there. I don't know. Probably some explanation.
Yeah, I love that. And the end of this episode, we see basically Sookie getting carted away by Alcide. He picks her up, takes her out.
Yay!
Yay! Hopefully this means more Alcide in the next episode. We don't know where Bill is. We don't really know what's happening with Jessica, but we do see Marnie putting her hands on Eric, and Eric going under her spell once again. Poor Eric. He's getting spelled.
Yeah, that's not good.
We see his eyes kind of roll back in the back of his head, but we don't know what's happening to him.
Well, I'm sure if Maria was here, she would say, because Maria is not a fan of wimpy Eric. She does not like him at all. So I'm sure she'd be rooting for him coming back to normal, and even if he's fighting for the other side, being normal Eric. So.
Oh my God, he could be fighting for the other side. Maybe we can talk about this in predictions, but that would be really interesting.
Yeah, but who knows? Should we go to our predictions? I feel like we've kind of tied them in.
Yeah, let's go to predictions.
Yeah, let's do some of that.
Mr. Jesse.
And now, your AfterBuzz TV predictions.
There we go. So I feel like we've covered a few.
Yeah, well, we've talked about a lot of options, but where do we think we're going to go? Let's start with actually just Alcide and his lady. Do we think that they're still going to be together in this next episode based off of sort of end of the episode?
I think she's going to throw a fit, to which I'm going to be like, please shut your mouth. But then they're going to go through like a rough patch, and somehow the pack leader is going to become involved and be like, you have to really make a choice. You're endangering us or something. And I think Alcide's going to be like, I can't do this. I need some time. And he's going to go like be a lone wolf.
Yeah, I don't think he wants to be in that pack, so I don't see him joining it either. But I wonder if, just to get plot twist, they're going to try to like force him to join the pack or something weird. That's what I'm nervous about.
Yeah.
Who knows?
What about with Sam and Tommy and Luna and all of that jazz?
That whole mess. Honestly, I think Tommy is headed for like a world of shit because he just stole all of this money. He keeps vomiting like really badly after he changes forms.
Yeah.
It's like something bad is going to happen to that kid.
Yeah.
Not that bad things haven't been happening to him, but maybe something worse, like gets killed off or something like that.
Or be used as like a tool for someone or something, like blackmailed.
Totally. I feel like the witches could totally use him, or the vampires. He's very like easily manipulated. And then with Tommy and Sam, I still think that their relationship is going to be on the outs for a while. I could totally see them reconciling, but not anytime soon.
Yeah, I would agree with them.
Sam will fight for Luna.
Yes, I think Sam's going to fight for Luna. I think Sam's going to end up marrying Luna. I know it's a long-term prediction, but
I want Sam to be happy. I'm done with him being sad.
Yeah, I think he's definitely going to marry Luna. Most of my reasoning for that is that they've only had like one wedding. And I feel like lots of shows normally have lots of weddings.
That's true.
Someone has to get married eventually, and I feel like it's going to be him.
Yeah, I could totally see that.
Because like the only people we've seen are like Arlene and Terry.
Well, it's going to be interesting to see what happens with the pack leader and Sam, which I do think they're totally going to duke it out.
And come on, Sam can turn into anything. He can turn into a wolf. I mean,
That's true.
I think Sam's
totally
going to win.
Yeah.
Cause like
I would want Sam to win.
Yeah, I think Sam would win. I mean, all he had to do is like turn into an elephant and like crush it. I feel like that wouldn't be that difficult.
And then with Sookie, where do we see her next episode? She's being carted off by Alcide. She's in love with Eric now.
Whose blood saves her? That's my question.
That'll be a good reveal.
Yeah, because I feel like Eric's gonna be under this spell and not be able to do it. So someone else is gonna have to come to the rescue, and I want to know who it is.
Yeah.
Bill? Question mark?
Bill Compton. It might be Bill's turn to get back in with her, which I don't really want, but we'll see.
Okay. And then anything about Jessica, Jason, and Hoyt?
Well, I think Hoyt and Jessica are over it. What makes me nervous about Hoyt is that he said he can't live without her, or there's no reason to live without her, so I'm really nervous.
Oh, no, but that was in the fake one. That was in the daydream, wasn't it?
Oh, didn't it happen, too, in the second one, though?
Oh, I thought he said he hated vampires. I thought that was his big thing.
Oh, okay. Well, then that's scary, too.
Yeah, that's also bad news. Oh, goodness. We're going to have a whole, like, True Blood battle. Okay, well, I think that's all I can think of for predictions.
True Blood predictions,
yeah. So, are you coming in next week?
Yes, I will be in studio and not via phone, so it'll be much more fun. You'll be able to see our faces.
There we go. They can see my ridiculous expressions as I talk. I'm kidding. I don't make ridiculous expressions ever. Okay.
Well, we have good ones.
There we go. So I can't wait to see you, and I can't wait for next week's episode.
Me too. I'm so excited. I cannot wait to see what happens.
From producers Kevin Undergaro and Phil Svitek, engineer DJ Jesse Janity, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. If you have questions or comments, be sure to buzz us at info@AfterBuzzTV.com. And you can find us on Facebook or follow us on Twitter by searching for AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later. There we go.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.